Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Spider-Man, and I am your host. Wait.
Huh?
This week on the show, Matt, we're doing our new movie thing. We don't talk about new movies that often, but we're doing it this week because we're going to be talking about the newest and biggest film in the world, Spider-Man: No Way Home.
That's right. It's the holiday season, and that means I can go see movies sometimes.
Yeah, my wife was off of work. I was able to sneak away from work, and daycare was open, which means I could go to the movie theater. And that's what we did. So we went and saw this movie, and we thought it'd be fun to talk about it. I think right here at the top, we should say, normally with these new movie episodes, we have a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. We're not going to do that this time. I don't think there's a way you can possibly talk about this movie without spoiling it. So I don't want to even try. So as soon as we officially start talking about the movie, it's going to be full spoilers. So that's a warning out there. If you have not gotten the chance to see Spider-Man: No Way Home yet, don't listen to this conversation. Pause here, go watch the movie, and then come back.
Sounds good.
But on top of that, we also have the results of our Christmas canon episode from last week, where we debated the worthiness of It's a Wonderful Life to be entered into the Doof Canon of great films. And we have the results of that vote from our listeners to talk about. So we're going to reveal those. And then we're going to wrap the show up by wrapping up 2021. We've got some of the biggest pop cultural events or most important to us events of the year that we're going to touch on a little bit here, as we're looking back on what was a weird, weird year.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, but let's get right into our main event and talk all about Spider-Man: No Way Home.
When you botched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, we started getting some visitors. From every universe. Hello, Peter. You're not Peter Parker.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
Matt, what is this movie all about?
With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, Peter asks Doctor Strange for help. When a spell goes wrong, dangerous foes from other worlds start to appear, forcing Peter to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man.
This movie was written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. It was directed by John Watts, and it stars Tom Holland, Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, and definitely does not star Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Definitely not.
No, not at all. And certainly not in a really big way either.
So, Matt, this is one of those rare moments where you and I have not talked about the movie at all before we sat down to record our episode. So I have no idea what your thoughts on this movie at all were. So tell me, what did you think of Spider-Man: No Way Home?
I mean, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was perhaps the most emotionally moving of the MCU films, and even to a degree that I was like, wow, I wish the rest of them were like this. Also, it managed to feel like a Spider-Man movie in a way that the other MCU Spider-Man movies haven't for me personally. And it's interesting, everyone has their own notion of what Spider-Man is as a character. So very positive for me. I'm sure at some point we'll both have our, little gripes here and there, as we always do. But overall, just really, really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to talk about how and why it worked so well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation I was really looking forward to having with you. And I'm glad it seems like we're on the same page here, so we don't have to spend half of our time debating the qualities of the film before we get into the nitty gritty of it. But I'm with you on this one. I really, really enjoyed my time with this movie. I had extremely low expectations going into this. We kind of talked about that when we talked about the trailer a few months ago. It felt like this was a cynical corporate move in every possible way. And it certainly is, right? And I think it's paying off in spades if you look at the box office of this movie. But I think this is about as good as a movie with this design and structure could ever possibly be, which is a testament to everyone involved in this thing. I think I'm on record of saying that I'm pretty mixed on both of the other two MCU Spider-Man movies. Obviously, Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire one, is my favorite superhero movie of all time. And I did not hate the Amazing Spider-Man movies as much as everyone else did, although I certainly see the enormous flaws in both of those movies. And this is a film that tries to bring all these disparate things together and do things with the current version of Peter Parker that I just didn't ever think that they would do. It's incredibly ambitious, and it shouldn't work at all, and yet somehow it does.
Mm-hmm.
I just that is the thing I can't get over the most, is that this many villains, this many characters, how does it all work? And yet it does.
Yeah, it's really quite something. I personally kind of wonder how it would work for people who haven't seen those other movies, and I suspect it would probably work pretty well still.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to admit, for me, this movie hits particularly hard because as you just said, you know, we're both great fans of Spider-Man 2, and I also love the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. I think
Mm-hmm.
those are fantastic movies, in part because they're slow paced. They focus on the human side of Peter Parker and how much his life sucks, and they're very dramatically effective. And I feel like this movie, the most that it's swerving into, you know, the greater Spider-Man mythos is emphasizing how much it sucks to be Peter Parker, like how impossible his life is, and then ending the film on a tragic note, which, like the Spider-Man movies, the Tobey Maguire movies, it feels to me, it feels better. It feels like I'm going to remember this movie. Like I've somehow not really, like, I've enjoyed the previous two Spider-Man MCU films as much as I enjoy any MCU film, where I'm just like, yeah, that was fun. That was a great time. That was well done. You know, Jake Gyllenhaal was great. You know, like you walk away from it feeling like, yeah, that was really fun. And then I just like never think about it again. And this movie, I think that I will, and I have since I watched it. I've thought about it because like it's got these really emotional moments, and those are the things that stick with you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I think the ending is such a powerful moment, and it's one of those things that's just like, from a pure storytelling structural perspective, it's perfect, right? Because Peter gets the thing that he wanted at the beginning of the movie at the end of the movie, only now he doesn't want it, right? Like it's just this perfect twist on this idea of wants and needs, where the wish that he wanted at the beginning of the movie is granted to him at the end, but by the time he's made it through that journey, he doesn't really want it anymore. And that scene in the diner, I think, is one of the all-time scenes in the entire MCU, right? Where and I think it shows off Tom Holland, who has never, I've always enjoyed as Peter Parker, but he's never really gotten to stretch his legs in this character, because, as you said, the tone has always been, you know, pretty light, pretty fun. He really gets to stretch his acting chops here, and that scene in particular, I think, is just mastercraft acting from him, with very little dialogue. It's all on his face, and it's all very, Matt, it's all very Peter Parker, and that's the thing. Like, I think Into the Spider-Verse, the animated feature from a couple years ago, really nailed this central theme of what does it mean to be Spider-Man, right? Like, they had all these different spider people from all these different universes, and that allowed us to really define what is Spider-Man. He doesn't have to be Peter Parker. He can be different people. He can, like, but the core of Spider-Man is the same. This movie, I think, is the definitive movie on what it means to be Peter Parker. And the way they do that is by having three different Peter Parkers come together and both commiserate on what it's like to be Peter Parker himself. And I think that's perfect, because I really think the story needs to move away from Peter Parker now. I think we've had enough Peter Parker stories for 3 lifetimes. and I think Spider-Man needs to move away from that. And so this, to me, is almost like a beautiful, perfect swan song goodbye for the character of Peter Parker. You know, we gave closure to the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker that didn't ever get to have his fourth movie. We gave closure to the Andrew Garfield Peter Parker, who got fucking robbed, by the way, because Andrew Garfield was one of the best Spider-Men, and he was just saddled with a couple of movies that just did not work. It's not Andrew Garfield's fault. And the fact that he was like, I remember when he got picked to be Spider-Man, and he was so excited. This was such an important thing to him, and it was not good. And so we gave the actor and the character closure in this movie, and then we kind of reset the MCU Peter Parker back to the core of the character. That the big complaint through all these movies up to this one was this Spider-Man doesn't really feel like Peter Parker. He's doesn't have to worry about money. He's not juggling life and this stuff. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't fit. And Marvel kind of said, yeah, I agree. And so by the end of this movie, we're going to reset our character. And that just seems like a perfect place to say, okay, goodbye, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, that's very optimistic of you, Scott. I'm sure we're going to get 15 more Peter Parker Spider-Man movies. But,
no, yeah. Amy Pascal, the producer of this movie, is already talking about how she has an entire trilogy lined up for this version of Peter Parker. Yeah. So yes, yeah.
And I wouldn't mind that personally. Like, it wouldn't break my heart. But I see this as, I want to hook into what you just said. A couple things you just said. The first being about how his performance finally felt like Spider-Man, especially in that last scene. And the way I want to frame this is like, yeah, because up until now, he's been Spider-Boy. He has not taken responsibility for anything, really. He was like Tony Stark's ward, and Tony Stark gave him this amazing Iron Spider suit. He never, he sort of caused a lot of his own problems in the other films. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he fought villains and so forth, but it was very much this feeling of like, yeah, this is high school Peter Parker. This is like early days Peter Parker. He's not confident. He hasn't made the choices that every Spider-Man has to make. I mean, I kind of love the way that this movie goes meta about it, because it basically says, in order to qualify as a Spider-Man, you have to have spider powers. You have to have a mentor or loved one who dies tragically and makes you learn the lesson of you have responsibilities. And then also he has to have that critical realization of like, in order to protect my loved ones from blowback, I need to cut myself off from them, which different stories go different ways with that, because obviously in most of the storylines, MJ eventually finds out that he's Spider-Man, and it's more complicated. But like where we are right now with this Peter Parker is he has decided it's equivalent to the end of Spider-Man 1 when he turns his back on MJ, right? Yeah. It's the I have to bear this burden myself. And then, where we're going to go from here, I presume, because we are going to get more of these movies, is our sort of like more realized Spider-Man character. He's behaving more like an adult. He's behaving more responsibly, but he's in fact wrong that he needs to bear this whole burden by himself, right? Like he's still not fully matured. I would say that's why Spider-Man 2 is a great movie, is because the end of Spider-Man 2 is the the will they won't they that's been built up over 2 whole movies is finally resolved.
I that's a great point. I love that. I will say it's kind of funny. Not that I didn't love the Aunt May death scene, which I did. I thought that was some of the most powerful filmmaking in the movie, and like that really got to me. And I think Marissa Tomei's turn as the character was just wonderful. It did feel a little weird to me, because this Peter Parker did also lose his Uncle Ben, and also has lost Tony Stark, which was, it seemed like in those earlier movies, was going to be the Uncle Ben surrogate. And yet neither of those deaths seemed to have the effect on him that this death did. And I think that like one complaint I have with the movie is that I don't think we got enough time with Aunt May to really sell her turn. Like suddenly she's this person who is working for this feast organization, which is like an outreach program for poor and homeless people, and suddenly she's never in the previous movies up until this point been like the person that says we have to help people, we must be doing good and helping, and like she's really just like this guy that was flirting with Tony Stark a whole bunch, and that's it. And so like it felt a little like we must at this last minute lean into this whole thing with suddenly we have to get to with great power there must come great responsibility line. So I don't know. I liked the scene, but like in the world of this trilogy of movies, it felt a little out of place.
I would say that I agree that she kind of felt like a different character, and while we're on that note, I was actually pretty sure that this was not going to be Doctor Strange. Like like there's been this web theory, this online theory that this wasn't going to be Doctor Strange. This was Mephisto in disguise, because why would Doctor Strange screw everything up so badly? Because if you really think about it, Doctor Strange has completely ruined Peter Parker's life through his incompetence.
Yeah, his motivation in this movie is so weird, and the only thing I have is that the Doctor Strange 2 movie was actually supposed to come out before this, so they had to piece together Doctor Strange's character in this movie from what we know of him last, and not all the stuff that he was presumably supposed to go through in the Doctor Strange movie that hasn't come out yet. And the result is this weird character who I just don't believe he would actually do any of these things. Like, I don't believe he would do this spell for Peter, and I don't believe he would allow the spell to be fucked up as bad as it was.
He seems like a darker, less disciplined version of the Doctor Strange that I thought that we knew.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I'm interested to see obviously I'm very excited to see the new Doctor Strange movie when that comes out. Maybe that'll sort of shed some light on the directions they were going. But anyway, I bring that up mainly to say, like, Aunt May and Doctor Strange are two characters where I was like, I was kind of confused to the extent of being like, are we doing a multiverse thing here as well? Like, are these not really the same? But no, I don't think that's what was meant to happen. I think it's just, different things were called for by the script. And so Benedict Cumberbatch did a different thing.
In a world where we have like 10 characters that the movie actually wants to spend a lot of time characterizing, I think we needed both Aunt May and Doctor Strange to be the plot advancing characters. So like they just needed to do the thing to make the thing happen that can start all the things. And we just didn't have time to focus on the why of their whole thing very much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine, because like what we get actually is this remarkable thing where not only are all these villains from these previous Spider-Man movies coming into this movie, but they actually have like an arc. And like that's the most astounding thing to me, is that like it wasn't just, hey, remember this guy, like they have wants and needs within this movie, and like sometimes their actions don't fully make sense to me. I'm not sure what Sandman is actually trying to do at any point in this movie, but like the fact that we tried, the fact that the Norman Osborn has like a whole arc in this movie, the fact that we also have one with Otto Octavius, and that even Jamie Foxx's silly Electro character like has desires within this movie. Like it was kind of stunning to me that they actually tried to do that instead of just having them as one-off references.
It is great, right? It makes you. This is a complicated thing, and it's weird that we talk about so many stories that have multiverses. It feels like every goddamn thing we talk about has multiverse stuff in it. Just think about how much of the stuff that we do has multiverses. But anyway, I was thinking while watching that, like, basically, are we implying that, you're going to send a cured Norman Osborn back to his own world, and does that mean that he's not killed by Peter Parker's glider because he's no longer the Green Goblin? Or sorry, by his own glider. And does that mean that thus Harry Osborn never turns on him, and like that thus we have like basically a splintered off multiverse timeline in the Loki multiverse theory sense of the word, where now there's there's essentially another Norman Osborn variant who has like okay, I know like on one level I don't like to be all theory crafty about this sort of thing because I feel like it sucks the drama out of it, but I kind of like this specifically because it's like I kind of like to imagine a story where Peter, Tobey Maguire Peter's life doesn't suck that bad. Like it's kind of fun, and it makes me happy to imagine that suddenly the Green Goblin disappears and then suddenly he reappears and his powers are gone and the problem's solved. And like like I get to imagine that movie had a happier ending than it did. Is what I'm saying making any sense here?
No, it totally does. I love that the movie allows you to have that. I just want to say, like, I don't like multiverse shit, and I actually hate that this is the thing that the MCU is really like going full bore into, is this multiverse stuff. But I think this movie does what you should do with multiverse storytelling, which is allow the multiple versions of characters and these things to reflect upon our main character. Like that's the best part of this movie, is that we're not just doing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire Spider people because it's fun and because we can do the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other meme.
Mhm.
We're doing it because it allows our Peter Parker, the protagonist of this movie, to learn things about himself in a way that he would not have been able to otherwise. And that is what you want to see here. And that's what Into the Spider-Verse did so well with it, and that's what this does so well with it. And that's what I'm afraid none of the other MCU stuff is going to do as well as a job that this did. And like even the villains allow that. Like the choice to make this movie fundamentally about Peter Parker does not want to send them home to doom them to death, because that is who Peter Parker is. He is a person that saves people, even the bad people, and he can't do that. He won't let himself do that, despite the fact that it puts more people in danger, despite the fact that it ends up getting people killed. That is who he is at his core, and he can't do that. And I love that in this movie, when Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire join this movie, there is never a debate between the three of them about, hey, is that actually a good idea? Is it actually a good idea to try to save these people? They just understand and accept that that's the plan, because of course it is, because they're Peter Parker and that's what Peter Parker does. And I like, that's fucking awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, they are in total alignment on the important things, and then they also all learn from each other too.
Yep.
I think one of my favorite parts is how it's not just MCU Spider-Man learning from the two older mentors. It's also Andrew Garfield having a heart-to-heart with Tobey Maguire, where we, you know, like you said, we learn, like, I love how the movie like slowly, like very slowly and tortuously reveals, like, I'm with MJ. And you're like, so years of not knowing, and and so like, and he always, you know, he talks up Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man because he's obviously struggling. He's in a part of his life where he's having a really hard time, and I just love the dynamic between the three of them and the performances too.
I think the choice to allow those two Spider-Men to age up and not just be, you know, present day in their movie facsimiles of the characters was the most brilliant choice, because we, like, if you think about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because we get a Norman Osborn that is obviously right before he dies. We get an Otto Octavius that is right before he dies. And when it comes to the Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire is, you know, he looks like Tobey Maguire. He like they did some serious de-aging on both Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina. They de-aged them a bit to make them closer to looking how they looked in those movies. But for Tobey Maguire, they didn't do that. He's 40s something Spider-Man, and they even make a joke about it that he looks like he's a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And Andrew Garfield is also a slightly older, although not as much older version of himself. And I love that they did that, because you're right, it allows us to see where these characters are and the things that they're suffering with. And, you know, Tobey Maguire is suffering with old age, things like he's making it work with MJ. So we kind of get our closure there. We see Andrew Garfield as like what I guess the third Amazing Spider-Man movie would have been, which is him, you know, struggling with the darkness and the anger that is inside him after losing his MJ, which is actually, why can't I think of her name
Gwen
now?
Stacy.
Gwen, thank you.
But I mean, the funny thing about the OG Spider-Man timeline of the comics, I believe, is Gwen Stacy dies, and then he gets with Mary Jane. So
correct. Yeah.
You know, are we meant to believe that is in store for the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man? Perhaps. I don't know.
Here's what I'll say. Andrew Garfield is having like the best year of his life right now. Like between Tick Tick Bang, which was a great musical that he might win an Academy Award for, and this performance, this is my new favorite actor right now. He's so fucking good in this movie, Matt. He's so fucking funny. This is the thing we haven't really talked about. This movie's hilarious, and it's hilarious in a different way than the typical MCU type of comedy. It's just really funny. It allows, like, there's some jokes like that are just callback humor, but most of it is just like someone sat in a room and said, what would be all the funny things these different Spider-Man from different worlds would say to each other? And then all the characters and actors were there for it. Like Andrew Garfield, like ranting about how he feels insignificant to the other two because one of them's been to space and the other's fought a space monster. And then they go, hey, no, You're amazing.
Yeah.
Come on. It's just like, it's constantly and consistently funny when they make fun of Tobey Maguire for not having web shooters and for it coming out of him. Like that's fucking great. It's like, the fact that the movie allows for this stuff, we have so many moments. Like I was shocked, Matt. These characters come into the movie about an hour and 15 minutes into it, and then they're just there for the rest of the movie. I really thought this was going to be a glorified cameo where they were going to show up and maybe do one battle and then go away. But no, these are legitimate characters in the movie.
Yeah, main characters. I mean, it's funny that they took so long to bring them into the movie that I was starting to think like, oh, okay, I mean, we'll probably see him briefly, but no, like once they're in the movie kind of shifts into this realm where it's like, oh, this is what this is about now. This is about Peter Parker, Tom Holland. He's just been through this tragedy, and now he's going to get to know these guys, and through them he's going to get to know himself. And I think they also kind of help him understand himself better and who he needs to be. And I think it could be said that it's due to interacting with them that he makes the decision at the end of the movie to number one, to erase all memory of himself, and number two, to then not try to talk to Zendaya anymore.
Yeah. I know we kind of already touched on this, but I just want to circle back to it again. That is such a wonderful thing to put into the movie that that makes it so different from the other two Spider-Man movies in this league, that the end of the movie, we're faced with a real important, impactful character choice. And like, we know he's going to make the choice, but that doesn't reduce the impact of the choice at all.
Yeah.
I loved like, you kind of start to see where it's going before he says it out loud. And you're like, oh, are we going to do this? Or is there going to be actual real long-term consequences of this? And yes, absolutely there is. And it's miraculous. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a clever thing too, because as you pointed out toward the start of the conversation, it resets us to the Spider-Man, the Spider-Man as we expect him to be, where he is knitting his costume out of nylon. He doesn't have access to Stark Tech anymore. He's living in a shitty 1-bedroom apartment that looks almost exactly the same as Peter Parker's, as Tobey Maguire's apartment from Spider-Man 2.
I kept waiting for the rent guy to show up and be like, rent?
Yeah.
I really thought they were going to do a cameo with that.
I felt like it was at least a callback that the guy says, like, rent's due first of the month, don't be late.
Yeah.
Because of course he's always going to be late with his rent, because that's it. That's the character.
Yeah, I mean, it's this weird combination of you're happy and pleased that we've kind of reset the character to the version we already know and love, but you're also like, it's so tragic that like that he's willingly made to this choice, and even after he already made the choice, to then make the further choice to not even bring his two friends into it, to choose to be alone. And like you said, I think in the long-term arc of the character, that is something that Peter will grow to realize is actually not a good choice, that like, you do not have to do this alone. You do not have to be totally alone. You don't have to sacrifice every part of Peter Parker to be Spider-Man, but he's not in that phase of the journey yet. And so it makes perfect sense that he walks into this coffee shop, sees these two characters, being best friends and being people who are now going to MIT, don't have a care in the world other than focusing on the things that make them kids, young adults going into the, and he can't help but feel that his intrusion into that would just destroy everything. That is quintessential this phase Peter Parker, for sure.
Yeah, and the movie lets scenes like that have their time to breathe. Yeah, which is something I really hope the MCU does more of. I like the MCU a lot, but like the better MCU movies are the ones where we get these well-constructed, emotional, well-acted scenes. Like if you really think about like all the best moments of the Iron Man and the Captain America films weren't necessarily the like badass action. It was like, no, we've got these stellar actors and they're being put in these really dramatic situations and they're just acting the shit out of them, and you feel the emotions of the character, and it's so great. And like, Zendaya's performance when he tells her what he's done, what the spell is going to do, is heartbreaking, right? Yeah, it's like the most heartbreaking thing in any MC. Okay, maybe leaving out like Tony Stark's snap or whatever. like it, and it's just all her face, like,
Yeah.
and just like the camera just like sitting on it, it's so good. I want more of this, please.
Yeah, you're right. Zendaya is so God, she's so good in this movie. She's such a good actress. I've loved her in just about everything I've seen her in. I mean, like we were talking about Dune earlier, and we've got so much more Dune Zendaya to see in the future, which I'm very excited about. But she really, this character, started out as this very, archetypal, no emotions, strange, like angry girl character. Like that's who the MJ in the first movie was, and how she's evolved over the course of this movie is nothing short of remarkable. I loved her in this movie so much. I think she's fantastic, and we give her stuff to do, and we give her agency. And even though she still has the classic Spider-Man's girlfriend save scene that is in every single movie, that is not her defining trait in the movie. And it's not even like, what I love is that scene isn't even about the Tom Holland Zendaya relationship where she falls and almost dies.
Right.
They make that about Andrew Garfield and his, getting redemption for the thing he feels he failed to do the last time around.
Yeah. And that was such a good moment. Again, speaking of performances and Andrew Garfield, just like every frame that he's on the screen, he's just like shoving 3 frames worth of acting into.
I was like, I knew this guy was a good actor because I've seen him in a lot of movies. Like Silence is a movie I will never stop talking about, the Martin Scorsese movie from a few years ago. He's the lead in that movie and he's absolutely incredible. I can't handle how good he is in this movie. Like, they must have thrown so much money at these people to get them back into this movie. Tobey Maguire especially. I can't even imagine how much money they threw at them. But it's not just like they're there for glorified cameos. There's not like they're just like they're Harrison Fording it up, like they're committed to what's going on in this movie and they are there for it. And Andrew Garfield is giving his all in every single one of those scenes.
Yeah.
And it makes the movie. It totally does.
Yeah. I mean, what I loved was Tobey Maguire he's not just doing his Peter Parker. He's doing his Peter Parker with like 20 years of experiences
Yep.
and trauma and darkness and struggle, but also heroism and strength. Like when he stops Tom Holland from killing the Goblin at the end, his like the expression on his face is just like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Like this is what I didn't, again, as somebody who loved those movies, it's like, holy shit. I loved it.
Yeah, it's really funny that they both of these spider people get to like make up for their perceived failure, right? In that Andrew Garfield saves this version of his Gwen from falling, and Tobey Maguire gets to stop the glider from stabbing Green Goblin, right? Where last time he didn't do that. So I mean, I know it's another Spider-Man holding the glider, but it's a really powerful moment. I think the behind the back stab of Tobey Maguire almost killed that moment for me, not because it wasn't a powerful, shocking thing to do in the moment, but then the movie just kind of says, oh, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's okay. Actually, he's gotten worse. And then we just kind of move on from it. And I was like, I literally thought they were about to kill the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And then they just kind of walk back from it. And I'm like, well, then why do we do the whole thing with the stabbing if we're just going to make it not actually mean anything?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to kill the Spider-Man, though. But no, I think it was just injury that's bad enough to slightly incapacitate a Spider-Man.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, though. I mean, another quip I heard about that scene was like, so none of the 3 Spider-Mans danger senses acted up when
their tingle
when he was about to get stabbed. No,
the tingle is very plot convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about that. I feel like the spider sense in all of the movies is employed like rarely enough that it's like you're not guaranteed to get a spider sense just because something bad is about to happen to you. It's
yeah. But speaking of that, when Peter's spider sense was going off in the villain apartment, and like he's trying to figure out what he feels and why, and it ends on Norman, I thought that was a great scene of just like the way Watts chose to shoot that scene with like this like the ringing and like the echoing of the voice. Like it's just all so great, and you, the audience, are kind of not quite sure. Although you I think at this point we know Norman is no good. It's just it's a great scene.
Yeah,
it's a great scene.
Yeah, I felt like also, we have this thing that's been built up over the 3 movies where the spider sense was, barely a thing, and also of course in Infinity War it shows up a little bit, but it's like they almost make fun of it in the second film, because it's like it's a thing but it's kind of useless. And now it feels like he's really kind of tuning into it, and he even closes his eyes, and then it's like he closes his eyes and then immediately opens them and webs the goblin. And it's like he was understanding what the spider sense was telling him, rather than just treating it as a kind of generic alarm. And I thought that was cool. And for some reason I connected that mentally to the idea when Strange knocks his astral form out of his body, and then his body is automatically keeping the box away from Doctor Strange using just its amazing reflexes.
That was so good.
It was hilarious to me, because it's like, yeah, sure, Spider-Man can probably do that. That makes sense.
Yeah. Can we talk about, we've kind of been circling around Norman Osborn, Green Goblin a bit, but can we talk about Willem Dafoe, who just remains incredible? I like, this is one of the nastiest villains in the entirety of the MCU. Like, not just the things he does, but the things he says. Like, even in those final moments with Peter, it was like, she's dead because like you killed her. You did this. Like, he's so fucking mean.
Yeah.
And like, it's so good. It's so effective. And it just taps into the exact emotions that Peter's feeling at the time. And so you understand why he almost crosses that line. I love, like, Willem Dafoe can just like jump back into this character and just fucking kill it like it's nothing.
Yeah, right. I don't know what's more impressive, that Tobey Maguire was able to like channel decades of experience into a new character, an older version of a character, or the fact that Willem Dafoe, a much older man now, was able to just re-inhabit the physicality of this rather cartoonish and flamboyant character, but like spot on. You're like, yeah, that's he's just stepped directly out of the scene where he's fighting Spider-Man in like 1999, and now he's here.
With the same amount of energy.
Yeah.
The dude is fucking 60 something years old, and he has like the exact same amount of energy he had 20 fucking years ago. Yeah, it's he's fantastic. And like, the de-aging stuff never bothered me. I think on Alfred Molina a little bit, he looks a little too smooth to be believable, but for the most part it works.
Yeah, there were very few moments, mostly when they were like in direct sunlight, that it didn't look 100%. But yeah, really, I mean, I watched it on the big screen. It didn't particularly bother me. I forgot, honestly. I forgot. So that's where we are, actually. I think recent movies we've watched or TV shows we've watched where they did the digital de-aging thing, you're completely aware of it the whole time, and it's distracting. This movie, I totally forgot that they did. I was just in it. And I was just buying that these were the characters. That's Doc Ock,
Yeah, totally.
So it worked.
Yeah, it totally did. I wonder how much the other actors got paid. Like the fucking Jamie Foxx, which is like, okay, I'll come back, but I'm not looking like that dweeby guy. You're just going to invent a reason why I look cool now, because I'm not doing that again. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah. Everybody wants to see Jamie Foxx be a badass. Nobody wants to see him be a dweeby guy.
Yeah. So. And then I'm blanking on the name of the Sandman actor, but like Thomas Hayden Church, he had to like probably a day of filmmaking for him, and everything else was CGI.
It's funny. I couldn't even tell if they really got him for most of the movie. I was like, is that even his voice? That doesn't really sound like his voice.
And then he appears for like 1 second at the very end.
Yeah. But I mean, presumably that was his voice for most of the movie.
I believe it was. Yeah.
Honestly, the first time he showed up, I was like, I guess they couldn't get him because that's obviously not his voice. And then later I was like, oh wait, that is his voice. What the hell? I don't know. That again, one of the very minor sort of complaint when it's like you're trying to do something where it's kind of amazing that it worked. Even as well as it did,
Sure.
The only villain they didn't get, well, okay, there's two. There was the Rhino. It's a shame we didn't get the Rhino, and of course
real
Venom.
shame. Yeah, which has we'll talk about. Do you want to talk about that scene now?
Let's talk about that now.
Okay, so this is the mid-credit scene, right? Is the Venom scene.
The mid-credit scene is the Venom scene.
So I have not seen the Venom sequel yet, Let There Be Carnage. But I guess there's a mid-credits scene in that movie in which Venom is like shows Tom Hardy that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, which explains why he gets sucked into the universe, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think it's so fucking funny that like Sony set up this mid-credit scene to say like Venom is going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. And then he's relegated to another mid-credit scene where he just goes away again.
Uh-huh.
And then of course some of his goo is left, which like doesn't actually make any sense because why would that happen? Why, like it's a dematerialization. It's not like you got yanked through something, but anyway, who cares? It's so funny that like basically Sony was like, oh yeah, we got to get Venom in this, and Marvel was like, nope, and they relegated him to a post-credit scene.
It is pretty funny. Perfect. I mean, you could argue that the piece of goo that got left behind is not really Venom. It's just a kind of piece of the symbiont that is going to now manifest as a new Venom in this world that doesn't necessarily know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Sure.
I'm getting real nerdy here, aren't I? But the point is we now have the possibility for Venom and even a black suit Spider-Man arc or something, which it's funny because it's like, Matt, do you really need another black suit Spider-Man arc after Spider-Man 3 starring Tobey Maguire? To which I say, yes, of course we do.
No, we don't.
No, no. But at this point, I'm willing to extend the benefit of the doubt to these MCU folks in terms of like finding new fun ways of exploring these ideas. Like I think you could do interesting, completely different things with the black suit Spider-Man with Tom Holland Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Sure. I the big question I have on this is like, what the fuck happened between the second movie and this movie that we got this movie? Like they made these successful and mediocre but ultimately fine films, and then with the third one they went, okay, but let's like try this time. And like I don't understand how that happened, like how everyone involved just said, okay, we're actually going to do something really emotional and impactful and powerful, and we're going to end this trilogy with all the like I don't the times that people choose to turn it on and don't choose to turn it on is like will remain a mystery to me, but I'm so glad we got the movie we got.
Yeah. I think that somewhere in the bowels of the MCU establishment, there are people who make decisions, and those people have been prioritizing fun, light films. Like think about the previous Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. We had Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal did a great job with the character. It's just like the movie leaves you not really feeling much of anything because in the end, I mean, to put it bluntly, everything is left off in the same place that it begins.
Yeah.
The only difference is now MJ knows that he's Spider-Man. That's like literally the only difference. And so it's like, what was the arc here? I don't think there was an arc really. And there certainly weren't any like scenes that made me really feel like something powerful was happening. Which is weird to say because there's all these life and death moments, and Mysterio takes him under his wing and then betrays him, and it's like, that's all so it seems like it should be dramatic, but somehow I just don't care because it's like it's treated in this light way, and the scenes aren't really allowed to breathe, and it's just not that deep. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's like you can't. It all feels very light and very shallow, and then it leaves you not feeling much of anything. Whereas this movie, whoever had their hands on this script and whoever made the decisions here was like, no, this is going to be an emotional story. Front and center, it's going to be an emotional story. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff. It's going to be very fun, but it's also going to make you cry a little bit, at least once. And we're not budging on that,
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's just moments and meetings where you like you placate the suits by saying we're going to do this Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield shit, and they're like totally in because like this kind of nostalgic multiversal combination thing is just like printing money. And so because you've agreed to do this thing that is guaranteed successful, suddenly you get a lot more leeway with the individual storytelling and structural decisions and tonal decisions of your film. Because as long as two different Spider-Man show up, the suits are in. And so you just get the ability to do all these deeper, more complicated, more complex things. And you're absolutely right. Have these scenes that allow you to sit in these emotions and not rush off to the next thing, not rush off to the next joke, but to live in the emotion of the scene. I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
I will say this movie, clearly a lot of this movie was filmed during COVID. And I think you could tell there's a lot of individual scene. Like, I feel like there's a lot with Alfred Molina in this movie that, like, you can tell he was just on a soundstage thousands of miles away from anyone else, and they just filmed all his scenes and then stitched them together. Like, I think literally the entire part of the movie that is trapping them in cells in Doctor Strange's basement was just because we were shooting this weirdly and off timing because of scheduling conflicts brought about by the coronavirus. Like, there's a lot of this movie that feels that way. There's a lot of edits and like scenes where like I could tell the director wanted both characters in the scene but couldn't for some reason, so we cut to a lot of individual shots, which, I mean, the movie overall I think looks very nice. I didn't mind a lot of the action, but there is some directorial moments where like I'm like, is this because of COVID? Because this feels a little weird to me.
Sure, I'll buy that. I don't think I was thinking about that while watching it, but I think, you know, for example, the whole scene that takes place on the freeway, like, that's not a set. None of that shit's real.
No.
So yeah, there's no real need for even Tom Holland and Alfred Molina to be in the same room for that one. Those are just a couple of CGI puppets fighting each other.
Yeah,
mostly.
And I mean,
looks
like,
good though.
There's a lot of, man. I like this movie so much. There's a lot of the movie that I'm just like, come on, this is like it's a bit overstuffed and it's a bit silly at times with some of its plot machinations. I think the what gets Peter out to the bridge is going to talk to the woman from MIT, and I actually enjoy the joke of like, you didn't try to ask her about getting in. I really like that. But like the scene with that woman where she's like, her reaction to almost dying and her like, Peter, you're a hero. And I just like, I don't know why that was in the movie. It just felt like, I don't know why it's in the movie. Like, I understand we need to get him out to the highway. Like, that's a great set sequence and set piece. It feels like one of those things where we prevised the on a highway set piece 2 years ago, and now we're actually shooting, and we need a structural story reason for him to go out there, and we can't think of one, and so we just did this.
But I feel like that didn't even make sense, honestly. Like, this is not something I thought about in the moment, but on reflection, I'm like, the thing to have happen there is for her to be really pissed off that he like hunted her on the freeway and then almost got her killed, and like storm off and be like, I'm not talking to you. I'm gonna make sure you and your friends never come to MIT because you're just gonna blow it up like you blew up this freeway, Parker.
Yeah.
And you know, he just makes it worse basically, which is,
why give him this emotional beat of, oh, you've fixed everything, Peter. That early in the movie, like, it just doesn't, it's not the time for that kind of beat.
It doesn't make any sense because that it never goes anywhere. Like, it
becomes irrelevant.
Yeah. It becomes completely irrelevant. Yeah.
So I do think so much of this stuff is like, we prevised this sequence months and months ago, and now we need a structural reason. So let's invent something, and this is the best we got. And it felt a little funny to me, but I mean, I overall I liked the sequence, but yeah, those individual beats felt a little weird.
Yeah, the freeway. Yeah, I guess there's a few beats here and there, you know, that felt a little too much. On the other hand, there were moments that were silly that I just like shriek laughed in the theater. Particularly, you know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
No, see, I did the exact opposite there. Like, that's too on the nose of a callback for me. Like, I just rolled my eyes at that.
There were some callbacks that I rolled my eyes at, but that one was so staring into the camera, winking at you like
much.
we're gonna do this. That
and
I
Alfred
thought was
Molina
great.
saying the power of the sun in the palm of my hands like 6 times. I'm like, okay, we get it. It. Spider-Man 2. I got it.
That was one that I didn't like because it was okay. So here's the thing. I liked it when they were winking at us and we were like, we're all in on the joke together. But when he kept saying the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, that was like supposed to be earnest and not winking. And then it's like, okay, don't do that. No, stop.
Yeah. I didn't like either of them. Any one of the like the direct like word for word callbacks. I guess I've just seen those movies. I've seen Spider-Man 1 and 2 so many times that they just felt like they were so immediately evident to me that I was like, oh, come on. Just you don't have to do. He's already here in the movie. Like you don't have to do a direct quote callback.
Yeah, it's literally the same character. Yeah. I mean, other sort of not callback but referential thing that I was pretty surprised to see, honestly, was Daredevil, Matt Murdock, for a very short cameo. But and I don't know what to think about this other than like, you know, being like, that I get it. And it kind of makes sense that he would be there actually, because he's like the Hell's Kitchen lawyer, and then he catches the brick and it's funny, and then he's gone and that's it. And yeah.
And significantly, this is the version of Matt Murdock played by Charlie Cox, who played the character on the Netflix series.
Right.
So we've kind of officially brought this version of the character, or perhaps just not even this version, just we brought back the actor to play the MCU version of the character. Yeah, I like that's the type of cameo I like because it goes unexplained and it's very quick. And although I do have to wonder the people that didn't know that was Daredevil / Matt Murdock, just how incomprehensible is that scene where this blind guy just catches a brick and you're just like, what the fuck was that? Although, I mean, I don't think anyone has to worry about that because in my theater, I heard about 300 men whisper to their wives or girlfriends, that's Daredevil. That's Daredevil.
Yeah. No,
like simultaneously across the theater. That's what happened. So it's funny to me to think what someone would think of that scene had they not known that.
I mean, my recollection of the scene, which I've only seen the movie once, so I'm not sure, but I feel like we get May calling him Matt and then Peter calling him Mr. Murdock. And it's like they're doing everything they can to be like, it's Matt Murdock. And then if you don't know who Matt Murdock is, then you're not going to get it.
Yeah. Then it's just a scene where your blind lawyer catches a brick.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, that was weird. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, let's cut away without any follow up. Yeah,
but I will say that is the kind of cameo that strikes me as a very comic book-esque kind of cameo, because like in the comics you can just do that, right? Oh, Peter Parker needs a lawyer. Oh, well, one of our characters is a lawyer, so why not make it that character? And in the movies, that was always basically impossible to do, because it just involved too much moving parts. And so it continues to be remarkable to me that we exist in a world now where the movies can pull off that kind of just insignificant 20-second cameo. I like it's cool and it works and it's not too much and I like it.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the Michael Keaton Batman, how there's like some throwaway to his lawyer being Harvey Dent, which doesn't go anywhere obviously because we hadn't established what we have now.
Well, but even that, like, it would be like if there was already a Harvey Dent movie or a Harvey Dent TV show, and then we got that guy. Like it's easy to just say, oh yes, my lawyer is Harvey Dent or my lawyer is Matt Murdock. But like for it to be the Charlie Cox version of that character, like the continuity that we're able to do between all these various disparate things is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and to feel like you're watching the same story like that. I think it's weird that this matters is what I'll say. Like it's like to think I'm going to go watch Spider-Man 2 again at some point, perhaps soon. And I'm going to be thinking it's pretty cool later when he gets teleported into the MCU multiverse and he helps Tom Holland. That's cool. It's cool that this character gets to do that, because that's the thing about movies and stories is like, yeah, it's the same actor, it's continuous. There's no contradictions. Sure, I'll buy that. I'll buy that these are the same story. I'll buy that Spider-Man 2 starring Tobey Maguire is part of the same story as Infinity War. It's part of the same story. It's a big story. It's a giant story. I don't know
if it's part of that story.
It's part of the same story. It's part of the same world. It's part of the same universe. It's part of the same narrative structure, right?
Yeah, I guess that is true. I don't want to brag, but I'm in the Avengers. Oh wow!
Wow,
What's is that?
Are you in a band?
Oh my god, this movie's so funny. I want to watch this movie again. I wish it wasn't only in theaters. I wish I could boot up Disney Plus right now and watch this movie. I would do it.
Yeah, it's we got totally spoiled in that short year of everything going straight to streaming.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like I will say, at the end of this conversation, we've talked how much we love this movie, how happy we are that it turned out the way it is. I'm a little sad that this is the only movie that can do well at the box office these days, because while they made such a good movie, it is such a calculated corporate good time thing. Like this movie was made to appeal to everyone. Like it was a movie that was made to appeal to you and me specifically because we watched that original Spider-Man. It was made to appeal to people who watched Amazing Spider-Man. It was made to appeal to people today who are watching these Spider-Man. I just, there's a part of me that, like, when I saw, in the midst of all these other great films like bombing at the box office, Spider-Man No Way Home becomes the second highest grossing opening weekend of all time. Like, it just means it doesn't mean that people aren't going to the movies anymore. It just means they're only going to the movies for these specific things. And I can't help but be sad about that, because this is still very much a corporate product.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to sort of have a flanking response there, which is just to say, I think this might somewhat be like the Avatar effect, where when you release a movie on the Christmas holiday weekend and everybody is with their families, and everybody's saying, all right, we're all together. What should we do together as a group? Oh, the new Spider-Man movie comes out. Literally everybody likes Spider-Man. Literally every human likes Spider-Man. So let's go see the Spider-Man movie together. So like that to me explains a huge amount of the sort of, factorization of why this movie made as much as it did, is the timing. Now, yes, you're obviously also correct that they just sort of designed a movie in a lab, meant to appeal to the broadest spectrum of people, and that's true. I mean, I don't know. I still don't know how to think about theaters and how movies are going to get funded going forward. This is sort of a conversation we've been having for a handful of years now. I feel like where are things going? We've got streaming. We've got we just had a really fun conversation on our Other Levels of the Tower Patreon only bonus podcast about the TV series Chapelwaite, where it's like, okay, this is a 10 hour, 8 hours, something like that. Total, in terms of total hours, really well made TV show. It's a Stephen King adaptation. It's great. I think everyone should watch it. It's on Epix, which is a streaming platform that no one has even heard of.
Yeah.
How is this funded? Is this going to make its money back? I have no idea. I hope that things like this, things like Chapelwaite, are able to continue to be made. And that's not even a central example of what you're talking about. You're talking about just like smaller films. I guess I'm optimistic, because after all, they, films like shows like Chapelwaite or films like Licorice Pizza, for example. I haven't seen it, but I understand that it's like indie. Those continue to be made. So
yeah, but for how long? I think you're right that had Spider-Man No Way Home bombed at the box office, let's say, or not even, because there's no way it was ever going to bomb, but underperformed, right? Like that it opened at the same level as Dune, let's say, which would be underperforming for that movie. Mm-hmm. I think we would be much more doom and gloom about the industry. Because like I would be saying right now, if a fucking Spider-Man movie can't even blow up at the box office, we're truly fucked. And so it is a little hypocritical maybe for me to be like, oh, this movie did amazingly, but this is spelling doom and gloom for every other type of movie at the theater. I think that's a little hypocritical. Obviously, what this movie represents is there are still enough people that are willing to go to a movie theater to bring in a big amount of money. The question is, what exact kind of stuff gets them into that theater? And I really do feel like it's only going to be stuff like this going forward. Like that's just like, you look at the box office and like the week this movie comes out, the total box office looks incredible. And then you break down into it and it's like nobody saw anything else. Anything. Like the new Guillermo del Toro movie, Nightmare Alley, is tanking. This is a director coming off of an Academy Award winning run where he won Best Picture and Best Director in the same year for The Shape of Water. No one's seeing this movie. No one. And
well, yeah. I mean, once again, I have to say that I think that I only know about Nightmare Alley because you told me about it. People have been trying to call me out about this idea that like I complain that nobody's advertising movies to me, so how should I know they exist? And they're like, well, Matt, you should watch trailers or something. I don't actually know what they want me to do. Anyway, the point is, I actually think this is a huge deal. Is like people don't really watch TV that much anymore. People consume media totally differently now. People haven't been going to theaters in general that often, and thus they haven't been seeing trailers that often. And so, when and where are we going to find out that Guillermo del Toro has a new movie? Exactly. Like that to me seems like the problem that the film industry has in front of it right now. How do we even make people aware that there's a new movie out that they might like?
Yeah. Where does the marketing apparatus spend its money in 2021? And that's a valid question, because I don't think TV spots is the way to do it anymore. I mean, certainly for it depends on the segment of the population you're going after, right? Like obviously the older people are still, odds are still watching some form of network or commercial driven television. But for the vast majority of the people, they don't watch those things anymore. So yeah, I don't know the answer. I think, if you look at the youngest generation, the content they primarily consume is like TikTok and YouTube videos. So like you could argue, oh, we'll just drop trailers as ads on YouTube. But like every YouTube ad now has a skip after 5 seconds button on it. And if it doesn't, people just get really annoyed. So like that's not really the way to do it either. I think so much of this is going to have to be driven through content creation, which is like all the big movie TikTokers talking about movies on TikTok, but they're only talking about things like Spider-Man. They're not talking about things like Nightmare Alley because those aren't the things that get the views. And it's just like this vicious cycle. And I don't know the answer to it. I honestly don't. But yeah, I'm not optimistic.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
So one possible solution, which I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just saying if I were a psychopathic suit working for a Hollywood studio, I might look a lot into like micro targeting, where you try to figure out like who are the kinds of people who would really enjoy Nightmare Alley, like, and you do analyses of demographics and interests, and you narrow down to like the subset of human beings who are really likely to go see a Nightmare Alley if they hear about it. And then you make Facebook ads, you make Twitter ads specifically calibrated and targeted at them, which only they see maybe. And now I have no idea whether that would be like a net positive return, but you would waste less money because you're not like scattershot buying ads on like in tons of places where the people who are watching the ads they were never going to see that movie anyway, because that's one sort of, from the marketing, from the studio point of view, positive consequence of this new kind of social media age is the social media companies have these profiles on you and they can specifically advertise to you.
Yeah,
So
that's definitely a positive.
I'm honestly a bit ambivalent because I loathed having to watch commercials when I was younger, when
Sure.
we'd watch TV, and it would just be the commercial. I was aware at the time of like, how much of my life have I spent waiting for the thing I want to watch to come on while you show me 4 to 6 commercials, like a lot of it. And so a slightly invasive and privacy destroying targeted ad next to that, I don't know. I see that as a fairly even trade. At least you're not wasting my life anymore.
Sure, but that's how they get you. That's how they get you, man.
I'm just choosing to be sanguine about the fact that we've lost our privacy entirely, Scott.
I think, honestly, I think what we're going to have to just realize is that what constitutes a theater movie is shifting. And like, people look at a movie like Nightmare Alley, and to them that seems like a TV movie. Even if the targeting advertisement worked, the response is, "Oh, that looks great. I'll see that on Netflix when it hits Netflix or whatever service." And I just think like this has always been something that the theater industry has struggled with. It's just the pandemic and everything has like expanded it and accelerated it faster than we could ever think possible. And I don't know what this looks like in 5 years. I just like think like, I feel like if I'm a movie studio, you're going to have to do a lot of work to convince me why greenlighting the next Guillermo del Toro movie for a theatrical run is an advantageous thing for me to invest my money in, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, no, I again, like I said, I don't know what to think. I don't know where we're heading. I don't have any real predictions.
Yeah, but I think that's a great way to stop talking about this movie that we both really, really liked. Doom and gloom about the theater industry.
Yeah, I'm just glad that Tobey Maguire gets another paycheck.
Yeah, me too. Dude, they must have paid him so much money. I really thought for a minute there that he wasn't going to wear the Spider-Man outfit, that like he was like, "All right, I'll do this, but you're not getting me in that fucking suit again." And they did it. They got him in the suit again. They even kind of made a joke about that, where like, you don't think he's wearing the suit first, and then Andrew Garfield's like, "Do you got your suit on you?" And he pulls down his shirt, and it's right there.
Yeah, and he's just like he always had it on in the other movies. He always had it under his clothes.
Yep. It's great stuff. Great stuff. So that is Spider-Man No Way Home. Great movie.
Yep.
Good talk. That's going to do it.
Yep.
Doof.
All right, Matt, really quickly here, let's talk about our results of last week's Canon vote. If you will recall, last week was Christmas. It feels like so long ago already, but it was just a week ago, and we talked about the best Christmas movie, in my opinion, It's a Wonderful Life. I think we both agreed that this is a worthy movie for our canon of great films. And do you want to know what the public thought?
I do, because I have no idea. They
agreed with us 95 to 5%. For a while there, it was looking to be 100%, and then some no votes came in at the last possible minute. So I thought we were going to have our first 100%er, but didn't quite get there. But it is in. It is in. People, I was very happy to see that people love this movie. I was kind of worried as we were recording this episode that like people were going to like, there would be a backlash to this movie where people actually think it's bad. But no, it seems like most people just agree this is a great Christmas movie.
Well, that's good. And I agree with them.
We do have one no voter who took the time to let us know why they voted no, and I just want to credit them on that, because we're always asking for this and people rarely do it. So just thanks, Derek, for explaining why you voted no. They said, here's mine. The Doof list is for peak things, whether it's an actor, a director's best, or another category. The movie just doesn't hit any of those for me. It's not the best Christmas movie, not even top 25 for me, or black and white movie, or even the best black and white Christmas movie. Hello, Miracle on 34th Street. And while I can concede it's not a better movie, my favorite Capra movie is Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. So Derek, top 25 I don't even know if I know 25 Christmas movies.
Perhaps Derek is just much more of a connoisseur of Christmas movies, and
That could be.
That's if that's entirely fair. Yeah.
I got a question for you, Matt. Have you ever been forced to watch any of these Hallmark Christmas movies?
I don't think so.
So this thing happened where like Hallmark started making Christmas movies and they're like really cheaply made and really bad and all the same. And then they became popular for some weird warped reason. And then so like all these streaming services started copying the concept, and now like Hulu and Netflix all release these annual cheaply made look like shit same story every time Christmas movies, and it's just it's too much. It's too much.
I don't like it.
But yeah, I've my in-laws really enjoy watching these terrible, knowing that they're terrible, they like watching these movies.
Yeah, life's too short for watching terrible movies on purpose, Scott. I'm sorry.
I agree. So that is it. We have another movie entered into our canon. Thank you for everyone who participated, and thank you to our council for recommending this great movie. I am excited to see what they bring to us next month. Doof. All right, Matt, let's talk about 2021. We kind of jumped the gun with some of the conversation because I wanted to talk to you about the box office in 2021 and what the industry looks like, and we kind of already did that. But I thought we'd just look back on the year and talk about some of our favorite or maybe least favorite pop cultural events, which it seems like they happen less and less because I think, culture is so segmented and siloed these days that like finding something that touches everyone simultaneously is more and more rare as we go.
And I don't know what word to use other than news cycle is so short that I did finally finish watching Arcane, and it's like, I started hearing about it like a month ago maybe, and it's like oh yeah, that's like old news, nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, Matt ready to walk into the Arcane discussion room and finds the room is empty because everyone's moved on already.
Everyone's moved on to the next thing. And I'm like, but you all told me this was like amazing and that I would love it. And they're like, yeah, we loved it. But
we're done.
Have you seen the new shiny thing?
Yeah. I mean, that's totally true. Like one of the fun things is I was kind of just like perusing the websites, like refreshing my memory of the things that happened this year. And it's like this year both feels like it went by incredibly fast and also feels like the longest year in the world because the whole GameStop stock shorting thing was this year. It was January. Can you believe that? Like the whole Wall Street bets stuff was this year.
I've lost all sense of time, like completely. Like I sort of seriously lose track of the fact that the COVID began 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Not
coming
1
up on
year
2
ago.
years.
Yeah. Like my brain is like, no, that's not right. That's not right. No, that's right. Yeah. It's crazy.
I think also for me, like everything that happened prior to my son being born feels like it was another lifetime entirely. Yeah. So like the idea that like it was only 11 months ago that this Wall Street bet stuff happened, like it seems astronomical to me.
Yeah, me too.
The other thing I wanted to talk about happened in March though. Did you know that Justice League, the Snyder Cut, came out a mere 9 months ago?
Yeah, that's another thing where I could not have guessed if you had paid me when that came out and how long ago it was. But
the only reason I remembered it is because it came out within 4 days of my son being born. So those are forever linked in my head for all eternity now. Hooray.
Well, that's good. I can't wait to make him watch all of Zack Snyder's films, including the Snyder Cut.
This is, I think, the one thing that you and I are just never going to agree on in any way, shape. Like we have differing opinions on films and shows and stuff all the time, but normally like they have some semblance of agreement on some portion of it. And this was a piece of shit movie that I hated so much. And I do not understand you at all.
It's not a movie, Scott. It's an experience.
It's a bad thing. It's bad. It's fucking awful. I hated it.
Excuse me, I have to go write an essay explaining why it's good.
No, it's not though. I listened to your points and I was screaming at my phone the whole time.
Well, you need to go listen to it again.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So that was 2021. I think it's weird that like that came and went. It shouldn't feel weird to me at this point. We just talked about how everything comes and goes, but like I never saw any kind of firm numbers on like how many people actually cared about this thing. I don't think it was very many. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't think I have either.
Because they spent a shitload of money on this thing. They spent so much money to release this movie, and I just don't know. I don't know if it did anything.
I don't know how money works because, like, how do you track? I don't know, man. I don't know how to think about this whole streaming thing. I think they've intentionally forbidden us from thinking about this whole streaming thing. So,
yeah, I mean, one thing you and I struggle with when we're looking at like, patron money versus number of downloads is like finding a good formula that calculates like how much is one X worth of Y,
Right.
and so I have no idea how when they're looking at, well, we spent $100 million letting Zack Snyder reshoot Justice League. How do they take the number of people who watched it and make revenue out of that? Like, because I mean, they must look at the people that signed up for HBO Max within a certain amount of days from the release of Justice League. Like they must, but do they know that they signed up because of Justice League? I just don't know how they calculate this at all.
I think they must have some kind of algorithm where they assign credit. They allocate credit based on factors such as timing and then what that viewer proceeds to do. Perhaps like if a person signs up for HBO Max and the first thing they do is watch Justice League, then you can be like, okay, that's probably why they signed up, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think that would be a fair assessment. Yeah.
So I bet they have a complicated program that allocates all of that in a way that's sort of straight-faced, believable, if not perfect.
Sure. What else do you want to talk about? What was some big 2021 cultural milestones for you?
I mean, it's hard to think of them because, like you said, I can't feel time anymore. But Dune was something I was looking forward to forever. It was supposed to come out in 2020. I was like insanely hype about Dune for an unusually long stretch of time. And so that for me, at least, was a big cultural moment. And I think for a lot of people were looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it did really well. It's sitting, worldwide at just under $400 million, which is pretty good. It made over $100 million domestically, which I think is better than we all thought it was going to do. I mean, it exceeded expectations basically everywhere it went. So it's still surprising to me, given the movie that it is, which I loved, but didn't expect other people to.
I mean, I also didn't expect it to do well, and I mean, it was as good as I wanted it to be. It was what I needed it to be. It was great. So that was cool. That was a cool cultural moment for me. And then I guess another one would just be kind of the flip side of Dune is that I knew Wheel of Time was coming out for quite a while, the TV show, and I was like aggressively not looking forward to it. I was like, this is gonna suck. I don't know why they're doing this. I don't know if I really believe that or if I was like not allowing myself to get excited. But then it turns out that it was pretty good. Like I definitely have like nitpicks about a couple episodes here and there, but I was really happy with all the choices they made for kind of streamlining the stories and rejiggering the characters in some ways, some small, some large ways to make it work better in the TV medium. And at some point, I think I'm going to want to do an episode about the Wheel of Time show now that the first season is over.
We're definitely going to have to do a full episode about it. I liked the show quite a bit, certainly more than I ever expected to. I wasn't a huge fan of how they chose to end the season. And this is not coming from someone who has any knowledge of anything in the books, because I don't remember a damn thing about any of the 3 books I read 20 years ago. But so plenty to talk about there. But yeah, overall, I was incredibly impressed with the show that I really thought was definitely going to be awful. And I think every time I thought it was going somewhere bad, it's like the show pivoted and refocused on its characters in a way that I really, really appreciated. I think, not to get too into details, but I think the biggest problem the show has is its main character is its least interesting one, which might also be a problem in the books as well. I don't remember, but I think that it feels like the show knew it too,
Mhm.
by like hiding the main character for 8 episodes or 7 episodes, then having to go, oh wait, this is his show. I
Yeah.
guess we got to pivot back to him.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some wobbliness, which some of it's like the unavoidable consequence of taking something that was a different narrative object and like contorting it to a totally new medium, and then also
Sure.
making it have to go much faster. There was also this thing that I was kind of disappointed about, which is one of the lead actors just like left the show. Like,
Oh yeah, I just heard about this. They're recasting them for the second season.
and they're recasting him. I think they've already recast him actually. But the point is, like, I thought the actor was great. I thought he was a great fit for the character, and it's one of my favorite characters. No, it is my favorite character in the books. So I was like super happy about that. And then the actor just, I don't know why. Like, and I guess the guy wants his privacy or something, because there's like nothing to be found about why this happened. But anyway, he's out, and they're bringing a new actor in, and I guess I'm cautiously hopeful that that works out, but it's a little bit of a bummer though.
Yeah, definitely. I just read about that today, but it was really surprising that there's just no news about what happened or why or anything like that. So we'll see. I'm excited about season 2, and I'm excited to dive into this in depth with you, which we're gonna have to do at some point.
Yeah.
All right. I think like the obviously the big thing for me this year was TV, because, with the combination of the pandemic and having a baby, I just wasn't able to get out to the theater as much. So I watched a lot of television shows this year. I think the big thing TV wise this year was the MCU getting into TV, right? Like I think WandaVision started at the very beginning of the year, and throughout the year we've now had WandaVision, we've had Captain America and the Winter Soldier, we've had
Loki,
thank you. We've had Hawkeye now. I think that's all, right? I think it's just those 4 so far.
Yeah, I think that's all so far. I mean, and of course that's leaving out. I mean, so yes, I don't actually know the word to talk about this. Those are like the MCU TV shows, but then there's also the other Marvel TV shows, like the one with Daredevil that we talked about a bit ago, where it's like those aren't really MCU, but they are connected, and I don't know what word to use for those.
I think we're basically throwing those all out. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
With the caveat that now Charlie Cox has appeared as Daredevil in a Spider-Man movie, so I don't know what that means going forward. But I think, the thing about when I look back on these Marvel shows, I didn't like them. and that's like the most surprising thing to me, is that like I did not enjoy very much. Like the thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we've said this many times, is that they're always gonna be good. Like it takes a lot for this machine to actually just turn out a bad thing. So they're always gonna have like this base level of that was pretty good. But none of these shows to me have risen above that base level so far. There have been moments in them. There was moments in WandaVision that I really loved. There were a couple moments in Loki that I was really into what they were doing. And the same with this new Hawkeye show, which I believe you haven't watched any of yet, right?
Correct.
There's moments in this Hawkeye show that I really loved, where I can tell they're doing like a Shane Black-esque thing that is right up my alley. And I was really, really into it. And then the biggest problem I have with this, and I think the best comparison to make, is the Matt Murdock appearance in Daredevil in Spider-Man, because Matt Murdock appears in Spider-Man, and what does that mean for Matt Murdock? It doesn't mean anything for Matt Murdock. It's just a cameo. But every one of these fucking Marvel TV shows, Matt, they just constantly are just backdoor pilots for other things that they're doing. And so you get these weird moments where you have these characters in the show that are there only to set up the character so we can do another show about them. And they did this again in Hawkeye. And I just want to tell, like, Hawkeye is a story about Clint Barton and this woman, I don't want to go too into detail for those who haven't seen it, but this woman, Kate Bishop, and their relationship and how he's dealing with his past and she's dealing with her desire and want to be like him. And it could have just been this incredibly personal, insular show about the two of them and the struggles that they're having. And instead it has to bring all these other characters into it and do all these other things and mean all these other things. And I'm tired like talking about it.
Yeah. I think I probably liked WandaVision more than you. I think I probably liked the other shows about as much as you. And exactly as you say, the problem with WandaVision is like it takes what feels like a very original, fresh concept with great performances, and then it just gets sucked into the vortex of how are we going to connect this to the vision's body and the soul stone and it's the Scarlet Witch power, and it's like, okay, like I didn't hate it when I watched it. I didn't mind all that stuff. It's just what it does is it sucks energy away from the parts of the show that were genuinely great.
Can I give you a spoiler for Hawkeye? Are you going to watch it?
I don't really. I mean, I might watch it, but I don't know if we want to spoil like everyone who's listening.
Well, I'll here's a spoiler for Hawkeye. If you don't want to listen to this, fast forward like 30 seconds.
Okay.
So in the second to last episode of Hawkeye, it's revealed that Kate Bishop's mother is working with a guy in the mob. And who is that person in the mob?
Kingpin.
It's the Kingpin, and he's played by Vincent D'Onofrio, the same person who played Kingpin in the Netflix Daredevil.
Okay.
And the thing about that reveal is it's meaningless in the concept in the frame of the show, because it doesn't matter who this person is, because we don't know him in the frame of the story we're telling. He's just random mob guy. And that's the type of thing that just exhausts me. Is like, it's the same with Star Trek Into Darkness when it was revealed that Benedict Cumberbatch was Khan the whole time. And that reveal is meaningless in the world of the show, because it doesn't, in the world of the show, that there's nothing there. And it's the same thing here. And it's just, I was so tired. I was so tired.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish they'd do less of that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's funny. I think I don't mind the retrospective callbacks, but I do mind the, like you said before, this whole show has been a secret trailer for this other movie.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, seriously. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. I'm forgetting her name now, but the character in WandaVision who got superpowers during the course of that show and is now going to have her own show, right? Like, she just felt like they couldn't do anything with her within the concept of the show because they had to save all that story stuff for her own show. And so she's just kind of there to get powers and then disappear from the narrative. And it's like, I feel like we keep doing this thing again and again and again. And it's just, there's got to be a better way to integrate. Like, I understand the need to integrate and make this a multiverse or a connected universe, and everything's playing off each other. Like, I get it. I totally get it. And there's ways to make it good, and there's ways to do what they've been doing. And I just not a fan so far. Just not a fan.
Yeah, I guess I find it hit or miss. Like is it mildly amusing to me that character you just mentioned is also the girl from Captain Marvel? Yes, it is. Do I really care? No. So it doesn't hurt the story for me. But if you sort of presume too much, if you presume that I'm going to care, and maybe I haven't even seen Captain Marvel, then that's just going to hurt your story. So
yeah, and I will say, like, just to reiterate, like, I've enjoyed overall these shows. Like, there was a lot of Hawkeye I enjoyed watching. The first 3 episodes of WandaVision are like some of my favorite TV of the year. I thought those were brilliant. It's just, I always end these series being like, okay, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
That was all right. Just all right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see where Marvel television goes from here, but I hope to better places, please.
Yeah, me too.
I think like the biggest television event of the year has to be Squid Game, though, right? Like, I think that was one of those rare things that broke wide in a way that for maybe a whole week everyone was talking about this one thing.
Yeah, a full week. Yeah, no, I agree. That was even I watched some Squid Game at least.
Yeah, that's my question. Did you ever finish that?
No, I think I watched like 3 episodes. But and it was good. I just didn't find the time.
Yeah, you got to get to the 5th episode, I believe, is the best one.
It is fun. I somehow have no idea what the twist is. Like I get the sense that there's like a twist that happens. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. Obviously, I don't want to know. I want to watch it. But it's kind of amazing to me that I haven't been spoiled on that yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because the most, like, the thing that broke wide with Squid Game was less the specific plot details of the story and more just the concept of the game itself is the thing that people got the most interested in talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you're seeing, pop culture and the national discussion on this thing, it's mostly about the games. And so like the intricate details and characterization, which I think is actually quite good in this show, is not the thing people were talking about. So that's probably how you escaped spoilers on that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But good show. They're working on a 2nd season. Not sure how interested I am in that, but I understand why they're doing it, considering everyone in the world was watching it.
Yeah, I can't really comment because I get the sense that the season might end in a way that doesn't lend itself to another season, but I have no idea.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just say that I wasn't a fan of how the show ended.
Okay.
So maybe they'll rectify that in the 2nd season, or maybe I'm the only one who felt that way. But I felt like the highs of the show were in the middle, and then the end just kind of tapered off.
All right.
But anything else? Anything from 2021 that really stood out to you?
No, nothing whatsoever.
It's such a weird year for me. Like my media diet has dramatically changed. I just have less time overall, and we are so busy with doing our stuff that like I read less than I normally do. I watched less than I normally do. I played less than I normally do. It's kind of a weird year for me, and I'm hoping to kind of get a better, more balanced schedule going forward into the next year. But I've been frantically trying to watch as many movies as I can over the holidays to catch up on movies I've missed, and I'm not doing a great job. My list is still very, very long of movies I would like to see.
Yeah, it's funny. I probably played more games than usual because of kind of, I don't know, the combination of certain Doofcast episodes, and God of War was a big thing for me this year.
Sure.
But obviously those are not new things. So
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I played a shit ton of Final Fantasy 14 in the past few weeks, but we don't want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, we're done with that.
So yeah, that's 2021. I mean, like, look, it's hard for me to sit here and be like, was this a good year or a bad year for story and storytelling? Because I just don't feel like I got a big enough sample. I will say that I think television, like overall TV, is really good right now. It's just really, really good. And I implore people to maybe go into next year and try some new TV shows that maybe you wouldn't have watched before.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a show on HBO right now called Station 11, and it's one of the best things I've seen all year. It's so freaking good. And it's a pandemic show. Like, how the fuck am I wanting to watch a show about a pandemic that kills 99% of people right now? How am I wanting to do that?
Uh-huh.
And it's because it's not actually as dour and depressing as you think that would be. It's this really interesting thing. It's based off a novel that I think I've tried to get us to read on book club before, and it just hasn't won the vote. For some reason, people look at pandemic fiction and say, no, thank you right now. But man, it's a good show. It's a really good show.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that makes me hopeful about the landscape is there's a lot of good shows.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's like when I speak about the box office and my worry about what these small budget or mid-budget movies do and where they exist in this world and what happens to movie theaters, I'm speaking about a very specific thing. I'm not speaking about like the state of visual storytelling in general, because I think in that regard, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
We're really good. I think storytelling has never been better. I think there's a lot of really amazing people doing really amazing work. And like you said, with Chapelwaite, I don't understand why people are giving people the money to make these things, but I'm very happy that they are.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I wish I did understand, but I don't.
Yeah, because we could maybe get in on some of that, but I don't get it. Someone pay me $40 million to make a show that only 25 people are going to watch. I can guarantee you that I could pull that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so goodbye 2021. Let's hope 22 is just a little bit better in the national crisis department, and also continues to be really great in the television and movie and video game and book department.
Me too.
All right, folks, that is all we have for you this week. If you have any opinions on Spider-Man, I keep wanting to say Into the Spider-Verse, but I mean No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home, on It's a Wonderful Life, or on any of the great big events that happened in 2021, please reach out to us. You can reach us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, on Twitter @doofmedia, or on our subreddit, that's r/doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on any of the major podcast platforms.
And you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you can find our monthly book club, which we'll be meeting next week to talk about the Kim Stanley book, Red Mars. It will be the 7th of January, I believe. So there's still time to get that book and read it and join us for book club. And of course, if you want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, and you can find all the different levels of membership and all the cool stuff that you get for being a part of each one of those. So head on over there and check it out.
Yeah, you could hear us talk about Chapelwaite, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we even have a spoiler-free part of that discussion.
We do.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, because each review really does help us out. It gets us more exposure, gets us noticed by the algorithm, and then there's more friends to hang out with in general.
Yeah, we love friends. Mm-hmm. We have so many friends. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Next week on the show, this week we talked about an incredibly popular, uniformly beloved entry into a franchise. And next week, we're going to be talking about the same thing. We're going to be talking about The Matrix Resurrections, which I'm sure no one will have any conflicting opinions about at all.
No, I'm sure we're going to be in wild agreement on this one.
We'll see you all next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.